All right, so everyone loves a good ranking system, right? Like top 10 movies or the best pizza toppings, you know.
Right.
But what about, like, the most powerful figures in demonology?
Mm.
I know, maybe that's a little nah.
Puckles.
But think about it. These entities,
Yeah.
like ranked by their influence and power, it's kind of fascinating. And today we're diving deep on one figure in particular.
Agares.
Yes, Agares, often referred to as a duke. And that's a title that carries a lot of weight in demonology.
It's not just some like honorary title, right? We're talking actual authority.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In this system, duke means you're commanding legions of spirits, not just, a handful. And Agares, well, he's said to command 31 legions.
31, that's more than some armies.
Exactly. It's a massive, organized force under his control, a force to be reckoned with, you could say. Okay, so we're not messing around here. Agares is a major player. But what I find really interesting is not just the ancient stories, but how he's understood and even worked with today.
And that's where things get really intriguing. One of the powers most associated with Agares is his ability to cause earthquakes.
Wait, like actual earthquakes? That seems a little extreme.
It's definitely dramatic. And while some interpretations do take this literally, there's also a symbolic layer to consider. Think about the sheer force of an earthquake, how it reshapes the landscape. In that sense, Agares embodies the potential for massive upheaval, for shaking things up at their very core.
So not just natural disasters, but shaking up your life, metaphorically. Yeah, I like where this is going.
Exactly. Some modern practitioners even call upon Agares in rituals that are meant to create radical change, to, break through obstacles that are holding them back. Imagine feeling completely stuck, and then suddenly everything shifts.
Wow. It's giving controlled chaos in the best possible way.
Chuckles, right. But Agares has other tricks up his sleeve. He's also associated with the power of flight, both causing it and here's where it gets interesting, reversing it.
Wait, hold on. He can make people run away and then bring them back.
That's right. Agares is linked to this push and pull, to controlling seemingly opposing forces. It's disruption, yes, but also the potential for reconciliation, for things coming full circle.
So he's not just some agent of chaos. There's nuance to it. Like, he can help you fix things, too.
Precisely. Imagine the power to, say, bring back a lost opportunity or mend a relationship that's been broken. Some practitioners believe Agares can assist with this, highlighting the element of balance and, dare I say, manipulation that he embodies.
Okay, now that's some serious power. But how on earth do you even begin to work with a demon like Agares? We're not talking about your, friendly spirit guide here. This is a duke.
You're right. Approaching an entity like Agares is not something to be taken lightly. It requires respect, deep understanding of the traditions involved.
So we're talking full-on ceremonial magic. Candles, incantations, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. These rituals often involve offerings, invocations, all designed to create a connection. But I have to emphasize, this is serious stuff. It requires caution and, ideally, guidance from experienced practitioners.
Right? Probably not something to try at home, folks, especially if you're just, looking for a new hobby. There's a reason these practices have been around for centuries, and it's not just for spooky vibes.
Absolutely. While the potential for positive change is there, we're still talking about powerful forces, and treating them with respect is paramount.
So we've got earthquakes, people coming and going. It's all very dramatic and powerful. But is there more to Agares than just these literal interpretations? What about the symbolism at play here?
Excellent question. And remember how we talked about Agares embodying duality? That's where things get really interesting. He represents this balance between creation and destruction, between movement and stillness. This isn't just about literal earthquakes, but the potential for upheaval and change in any aspect of life.
So it's not just about the powers themselves, but what they represent on a deeper symbolic level. Tell me more about that. So we're talking literal earthquakes, but then also like these metaphorical ones too.
Yeah.
The potential for big change in our lives. It's pretty deep stuff, right?
It really is. And that's kind of the beauty of working with these ancient figures, even just symbolically. They offer a way to think about these really complex forces in ourselves and the world.
Okay, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
How do we actually use these Agares concepts, even symbolically, in our own lives?
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about demons and earthquakes, but what does it all mean for us day to day?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Let's take that causing flight ability. On a symbolic level, we can think about it as banishing negativity from our lives. Those thoughts, habits, even people that are holding you back, draining your energy. Agares, in this context, becomes kind of a force for clearing out the cobwebs, creating space for something new.
So instead of like running away ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we're using that energy to banish the things that aren't good for us. Okay, I like that. What about the bringing back power? How does that translate to our own experiences?
Imagine a time when you felt really confident, passionate, full of joy. Life happens. We lose parts of ourselves along the way. Working with the energy of Agares in this case could be about getting those lost aspects back, reintegrating them into who we are now. It's not about literally going back in time, but bringing back the best parts of ourselves.
The parts that maybe we've lost or forgotten along the way. Okay, I like where we're going with this. So if you've got banishing the bad, bringing back the good. What about the earthquakes, though? That one seems a little trickier to apply to daily life, unless we're talking about like really shaking up your morning coffee routine or something.
Right. We don't want to be encouraging any literal seismic activity. But think of it this way. We all get stuck in patterns and ways of thinking and being that don't really serve us. Sometimes the only way to break free is through a period of upheaval, of radical change.
So like a personal earthquake to shake things up. I can get behind that.
Exactly. It's about embracing transformation, even if it feels a little chaotic at first. And this is where Agares as a symbol can be quite potent. He reminds us that destruction and creation are often two sides of the same coin.
Okay, that's a powerful concept. It makes you think, what aspects of our lives might need a bit of an earthquake to break through? But I have to ask, and maybe this is a bit of a downer, but are there ethical considerations here? Especially when we're talking about powers like making people flee or, manipulating situations.
Yeah. You raise a really important point. Whenever we're dealing with energies this potent, even symbolically, we have to proceed carefully with awareness and responsibility. For example, if you're using that causing flight concept to banish negativity, it's important to check your intentions. Are you trying to control or manipulate someone else?
Right.
Or are you setting healthy boundaries for your own well-being? It's a big difference.
So like, no, using Agares to like get back to your ex or anything like that.
Let's just say using these concepts for revenge is probably not the answer, and it's definitely not something to be taken lightly.
Good advice. So it's all about using this knowledge responsibly for personal growth and transformation. Not for causing harm or controlling others. It's about looking inward, not outward.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our own power to create change in our lives, but doing so with a sense of responsibility and respect for ourselves and others.
It's like that saying, with great power
Comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why historically, working with entities like Agares was reserved for those with a really deep understanding of these practices, people who had undergone rigorous training and understood the potential risks.
So not exactly something you'd find in a self-help book at the airport.
Probably not, but I do think there's a valuable lesson here for all of us, even if we're not planning to summon any demons anytime soon.
Okay, what's that?
That we all have the power to create change in our lives, to banish negativity, to reclaim what we've lost, and to embrace transformation, even when it feels a little scary. We might not all have 31 legions of demons at our beck and call.
More's the pity.
Indeed. But we do have our own inner strength, our own capacity for growth and resilience. And sometimes tapping into that power is as simple as recognizing it exists.
I love that. So while summoning Agares might be off the table for most of us,
And probably for the best.
definitely for the best, but the symbolism, the ideas he represents, those are things we can all explore and learn from.
Absolutely, because ultimately these ancient stories, these figures of power and myth, they're reflections of ourselves. They embody our fears, our desires, and our potential. And it's by understanding them that we can better understand our own capacity for change and transformation.
So well said. Now, speaking of these ancient stories, we've been focusing on the Ars Goetia, which is where Agares is most famously described. But he pops up in other texts too, right?
That's right. Agares is more than just one entry in a demonology book. He appears in other significant texts, like the Book of Abramelin, for example.
For those of us who aren't, demonology scholars, what is the Book of Abramelin?
It's a really interesting grimoire said to be from the 14th or 15th century. It outlines a complex system of magic, including rituals for contacting your holy guardian angel. And what's interesting is it mentions Agares as a powerful entity associated with teaching languages and revealing hidden treasures.
So Agares is like the multi-tool of demons. We've got earthquakes, banishing negativity, bringing things back, even languages and hidden treasures. What can't he do?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Right. Every demon has its limits. But it's fascinating how many different interpretations there are of him.
It speaks to the complexity of these figures and how they can resonate with people on so many different levels.
Absolutely. And speaking of resonance, we were talking about how Agares isn't just stuck in these old grimoires. He's still relevant in modern occult practices. What draws people to him specifically today?
I think there's a sense of empowerment that people find in working with Agares, especially if they're feeling stuck in their lives. He represents this potential to break free from those limitations, to shake things up and reclaim a sense of agency.
Makes sense, given his whole earthquake thing and the causing flight aspect. But I imagine working with an entity as powerful as Agares, even in a modern context, comes with some serious disclaimers, right?
Definitely. This isn't something to be entered into lightly. It requires knowledge, respect, and a great deal of caution. Working with these energies can be a powerful experience, and it's not something to be taken lightly.
So maybe not a good DIY project then.
Probably not. But even if we're not all planning to add Agaris to our personal practices, there's still a really valuable takeaway here.
What's that?
Agares, for as intimidating as he might seem coming from these demonology texts, ultimately reflects something very human. We all face those moments of upheaval, those times when we feel powerless or trapped. But we all have that potential for change, for transformation, for reclaiming our sense of control.
So even if we don't have an army of demons at our disposal, right, we still have the power to create those earthquakes in our own lives, to shake things up and make way for something new, to banish the things that are holding us back, to reclaim the parts of ourselves that we thought were gone.
Beautifully put. And sometimes that little bit of that Agares energy, that willingness to embrace change, is all it takes to set us on a new path.
I love that. So exploring these ancient figures, even ones as seemingly intense as Agares, can offer some surprisingly relevant insights for us today.
Absolutely. And as we've seen with Agares, sometimes a little earthquake energy, used carefully and with intention, can be the catalyst for some really incredible personal growth.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Big thanks to you for guiding us through this deep dive into the world of Agares. It's been fascinating.
My pleasure. Until next time.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey through demonology, ancient magic, and the power of personal transformation. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.